Hello, everybody. So this would be the podcast for the February 12th assignment. So what you guys are going to be doing is still using the quadratic formula, but this time you're not going to get either whole number or fractional answers. Like in the previous assignment, you got an answer of like 2 and -7, or say 3 halves and -5/3. You got two answers like this. You're still going to get two answers, um, but they'll probably be, not probably, they will be in square root form or in a decimal form, and it'll be clear which one it is they're looking for. Okay, so here goes. You still, as a first step, need to make the right side equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 5 off from both sides. So you got 4n squared minus 15n plus 10 is equal to 0. And you're still going to use this pattern, the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over twice a. Okay. I think it's a great thing to start by writing what each of these things are so they're really clear for you. So a is 4, b is -15, c is 10. And then you start plugging them in that formula. So x is going to be equal to the opposite of b. So 15 plus or minus the square root. And remember, when b is negative, you need to put that in a parenthesis to type it in your calculator. Minus 4 times a times c. And that 4 is always there, this 4, okay? And it's all over twice a, so that would be 8. Now to show you, again, I didn't have the calculator launched for the last lesson, but here you go. To talk about this, -15 in a parenthesis or not in a parenthesis. So if I don't put it in parenthesis, I get -225. And that's not correct. It's intended to be in a parenthesis. They're always intended to be in a parenthesis, even though one isn't written there. But when it's positive, it doesn't matter. Put it in a parenthesis, it's still going to be 25. But if it was -5 versus -5 in a parenthesis squared, this is going to be -25, and this is going to be +25. So it's always meant to be in a parenthesis, but when the number is squared, it doesn't matter. Okay? So x is equal to 15 plus or minus, let's see what I got for an answer inside that square root. And you don't type the square root symbol in. Oops, wrong one. This one. Okay, so let's go. Parenthesis, -15, close it, squared, minus 4 times 4 times 10. Let's see what we get. 65. Okay. 65 isn't going to reduce. 65 would be what? 5 times, what would that be? 13. So nothing's going to pop out. Okay, it just is what it is. Right? So this is your final answer. Now in Delta Math, you're probably going to have to type it in this way. All over 8, and then comma 15 minus the square root of 65 all over 8. Okay? So that's how you're going to type it into Delta Math. All right. Subtract the 6, subtract the 6, and you get a squared minus 3a minus 7 is equal to 0. So again, you start identifying a, it's a 1. There's a 1 in front of it. B is equal to -3. C is equal to -7. And then you follow that pattern. X is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over twice a. So you start filling it out. A is equal to the opposite of b, so 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared. B again is negative, so I need to make sure I have that parenthesis. Minus 4 times 1 times -7 all over twice a. Twice a is 2. So x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of that number over 2. So to type all that in, so I've got parenthesis. Again, I'm not using the square root. Parenthesis -3 squared minus 4 times 1. Do you really need the 1? No. -7 equals 37. 37 isn't going to reduce, so it stays as is. So you would type in 3 plus the square root of 37 over 2, and 3 minus the square root of 37 over 2. Because I don't believe they give you a plus or minus symbol, so I think you have to break it to 2 pieces. Okay. Now, decimal answers. You're going to do exactly what you did before. You're just going to get decimal answers, and I'll show you how to do it. So I'm going to add 3x squared to both sides. So you get 6x squared plus 9x minus 1 is equal to 0. So a is equal to 6, b is equal to 9, c is equal to negative 1. So x is equal to the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root, b squared. B is positive, so I don't need the parens. Minus 4 times a times c, all over twice a, which would be 12. So x is equal to negative 9 plus or minus whatever I get in that square root over 12. So just doing the square root. So I have 9 squared, which is 81, minus 4 times negative 6, times 6, not negative 6. So back up, delete. Times 6 times negative 1. And remember, this is the negative symbol. Don't use the subtraction. So I get 249. Now, they're looking for you to give a decimal answer. So what you do, there's a couple tricks to it. So let me show you. Oops, it's not plus this time, it's minus. So this is how you gave your previous answers. Okay, what I have to do is get decimals for these. And what did it say? Round to the nearest tenth. So that's the first decimal place. So I have to type this in your calculator. Now to do it, you need to be a little bit careful. Everything on top is being divided by 12. So what that means is you have to capture everything on top with a parenthesis around the whole thing. Otherwise, if you type in negative 9 plus the square root of 249 divide by 12, it'll just divide the 249. I have to divide everything by 12, so I need that parenthesis. So parenthesis, negative 9 plus the square root. The square root is second squared, 249. Close the parenthesis. Whoops. So there's a tip right there. You got to come out of the parenthesis or the square root first. I'll show you how to do that. You have to arrow out of that square root with the right arrow. There you go. Now hit the parenthesis divided by, I think it was 12. And there's one answer. So, oops, round to the nearest tenth. So that would be 0.6. So 0.6 is one answer. Now let's get this one. So you've got parenthesis, negative 9 minus the square root of 249. Come out of the square root, parenthesis, divided by 12. Oops, 12. Enter. So then negative 2.1. Negative 2.1. Now I can show you guys a way to shorten this up a bit. So let's say, to limit the number of keystrokes you got to do, let's say this was the one I typed in first. Well, here, how about this? I cleared out. Parenthesis, negative 9 plus the square root of 249. Come out of the square root, parenthesis, divided by 12. Enter. Oh, I hit 11. But here, okay, so here, this is a good thing. Rather than retyping it, what you can do is second, enter, and it calls that previous thing back. And then you can just back up and go, no, that wasn't 11, it was 12. So again, what I did was second, enter, and it calls the previous thing you typed in back. Now, the second time you do this, that has to be a minus. Rather than retyping it, I can arrow back all the way through it, oops, and make that a minus, and then hit enter again. I think that's easier than retyping everything. Okay, so I went second, enter, call back the previous statement. Okay, trying to save you some keystrokes. Okay, this one, it's already set equal to 0. So a is equal to 3, b is equal to negative 1. There's a negative 1 there. C is negative 3. So you go x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root, b squared, b is negative, so you need a parenthesis around it, minus 4 times a times c, all over twice a, which would be 6. Simplify the square root. So we've got, come on. So parenthesis, -1 squared minus 4 times 3 times -3. And you get 37. So now you have to type in 1 plus the square root of 37 over 6, and 1 minus the square root of 37 over 6. Again, rounding to the nearest tenth. And you still need that parenthesis on the top and on this top. So typing in the first one, I've got paren 1 plus the square root of 37. Come out of the square root by arrowing over, close the parenthesis and divide by 6. Enter. So you get 1.2. Now to do the second one, what I did was second, enter, and it calls the previous thing back. And then I'm just going to arrow back in here. Come on, come on, and put a minus. And enter again. So a negative 0.8 and 1.2. So negative 0.8 and 1.2 are your two answers. Okay, that's the assignment. Thank you for your time. Have a great one.